Democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are morons. So let us say government by the morons, for the morons, of the morons.
Welcome to the Deeper Governance Podcast, where we are the morons. We are the community, and where we can truly govern decentrally together. I am Deep Sea, and this is the Deeper Governance Podcast, where we explore the depths of decision making. Here we are on the first Deeper Governance Podcast. We're trying to work through some bugs here. I think we got it. We've got the probably the main man of governance in the IOTA Shimmer, Mr. Phylo here, been working for the last several years, not just as a community representative, but diligently on governance and 20 plus page frameworks, and now diving into the smart contract governance. So yeah, welcome. Glad you can be a guest here.
Way, good morning. Hi, JD, or good evening. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me as your first trial guest in your podcast. That's quite nice. Yeah, I think we'll have a good time. We usually get along very well. Yeah, I don't take any credits for all this governance stuff. It's like nothing would have happened without all the others. So I'm just like trying to do my thing to keep things running. But yeah, we can talk about all this.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and for anyone listening, I think I've wanted to try to create a sort of almost like a Lex Friedman, Joe Rogan, open discussion. I think Thomas with the Munico podcast does a great job on an interview basis, and Cookcraft does a great entertainment summary updates. But I wanted to create a podcast specific about governance that we can just openly talk, just discuss real life events, discuss what's going on in the Shimmer ecosystem, the IOTA ecosystem, and also look at other basically decentralized voting applications, governance and management, and in other ecosystems. And hopefully it would be nice. I think any podcast, any content should strive to reach outside of the ecosystem to help get away from the tribalism and work with others. So, hopefully I'll be able to bring other leaders in treasury governances in, so that we can learn from them and learn from the pros and cons that they've worked for. But yeah, I agree. I think it's been a great endeavor. I think the treasury's been going, and we're going to be getting smart contracts soon. Why don't you, we could do intros and all that, but I think everyone knows you. They know. One thing I was thinking of all the interviews I haven't heard, why did you initially go to Bali? What was the first initial
The initial thing basically was to because my wife and I, we fell in love with the island
Nice.
a long time ago on our first holiday, and it actually was the whole thing of learning how to dive in Bali the first time, being underwater the first time, seeing the first time in my life coral reefs and stuff like this, this was the initial thing of changing our lives.
Nice.
And so after we returned the second or third time, and we basically got addicted to diving first of all and to the island, and we saw that actually it seems like to be not a bad life to be a dive instructor in Bali. We met some couples there that did the same thing. So especially the ones that trained us, they did the same thing. They hooked away from Great Britain and made a new start in Bali, and it seemed for them to work. And we thought, maybe we should do something similar, yeah. And so from this point on, the plan emerged, and at the end it turned out very well. So yeah, this was the main thing, but mainly it's really the love for the island, for the culture, for the nature here, the people. It's a good place to live, definitely. And it's our thing now. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I got Patty certified there when I was on the island. There was a Danish woman. I don't know if she's still there. She was on is it Sonora, I think, is the opposite side of like
Yeah.
Seminyak. Yeah. And then and when I was engaged to my wife, brought her out there in Tulamben. She also did her well, she did her dive course, she did her dive training, but she did her actual dives, her first dives in Bali. So she just, it is a beautiful place, and it's, and the culture and the people are just beautiful people as well. Well, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Nice. And how long were you there before you started working for IOTA Foundation then?
Oh, quite long. We're here since what's it now? Nearly over 8 years.
Oh wow, okay.
Over 8 years, and so yeah, well, like 6 years, 6 years diving thing, and then while COVID hit
Mm-hmm.
the worldwide tourism industry, the diving industry was, or the diving tourism was over here, and
Sure.
then IOTA came along with a lot of interesting stuff, and I had time. This was the thing, where like kind of like being no guests, nothing to do, and so I got kind of stuck in the Discord and in the whole IOTA ecosystem, and yeah, then everything happened around this treasury thing, and yeah, it was a good thing to spend my time, and yeah, finally I tumbled into the IOTA Foundation, let's say it like this.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, there's definitely and you're right. I don't think, you know, everyone, we didn't get here today without everyone's efforts put in along the way, but sometimes it's also good, especially I'm grateful that the IOTA Foundation was able to take you on and salary you, because getting all that you know, just sometimes like discussions can go on, but when someone throws out a framework, just says, okay, this is what we discussed, let's
Mhm.
just put something on paper, and now it's tangible, it's like there that everyone can look at and then say, well, let's adjust this, let's adjust that, and then it moves forward, you know.
Yeah.
And but it's tough, I mean, to do that when people are working, to put, you know, I mean, it's a full-time job, which you've
Yeah.
definitely taken on, and I'm taking on now, and with the treasury side, and but it's good, it moves things forward. So
Yeah, I actually think I mean, that's a really, it's a great strat, and it's actually something that makes, I don't know if this is happening. I'm sure this is also happening in other protocols.
mhm.
It's a similar thing, and from the view of the IOTA Foundation, it's of course the best thing that you can do. And we are doing this quite extensively with our ecosystem and community. You you recognize that there are people super engaged and they have
Mm,
some skills, and you also know that nobody can keep up this amount of engagement over a longer period of time, besides having a normal job and a life and a family and things like this. And so you have either the decision to let such engagement fade out,
mhm.
because there will be a point where the wife and the family request more time and your work and all the things, or you take the step forward and you try to get such valuable community members
Yeah,
into a proper paid um, engaged position,
yep,
which I think the IF has done really well. Look
yeah,
how many people from made the move over from ecosystem into the foundation. So
yeah,
like basically 60-70% of the employees of the IOTA Foundation have all been former long-term community members, developers, basically the core players and the core functions of IF are all set up of former community members. And this, I think, is kind of a really great way, because we have much more, every one of us has much more than just a job. Yeah,
yeah,
we fell in love with IOTA, with the idea, with the vision behind it, and then we got the opportunity to work for it. Yeah, and you see this now with Kowai and all the people the IF has employed, a lot, most of them over the last 2 years, come with a similar background.
Mm.
And this is really strong. This is really a strong community anchor for the foundation and in the foundation. Yeah. So basically, you could say the community is infiltrating the foundation step by step, and
Yeah.
we're turning it into the thing that we always wanted it to be. Yeah.
You know, I have to say, there's like, you can't put a price on passion. And I was telling my wife, it is so different working with the Treasury Committee when we're having our meetings, when we're trying to figure solutions to issues we're facing, or trying to come together from working, you know, my career before of oil and gas, where it's like you can feel that people are, say, in their mind going, I'm here for my paycheck so I could put food on my table, take care of my family, but I want to go home, you know.
Yeah.
And the passion isn't necessarily there. Few people have it, but you know, versus, yeah, this community we have in the IOTA Foundation and the Treasury Committee, the committee members themselves, like, you can tell that they are just passionate about it. That, you know, it's nice that they're definitely getting paid and getting an incentive, but they would do it anyways, you know. And I think that's a great position from the foundation, really grasp.
Ways, but yeah, having a salary for that is just something. It just relieves all the stress. Otherwise, because you can't, only you need to be properly focused and not have to worry about all the normal life things.
Yeah.
Because then only then we can basically deliver uh, the immense workload that we are facing.
Yeah.
And you see it now. This was the same thinking about, I think, we had when we thought about how we can design a grant committee. Yeah, you could have said, okay, let's just like find people that are willingly to review grants, and they do this in their free time, and they don't need to get paid for that. And I'm sure we find enough community members that will do this just because they like the ecosystem, which would have actually, I think it's not something that you can really do. And I'm sure you see this from your own thing. The amount of work that you are putting now in, it's impossible to do this with, it has to be a full-time job.
Yeah.
And also reviewers, they need, if you want people to deliver high quality work, you don't get along without paying them a proper salary, because yeah, it's like, in the end, if you have to decide, do I spend my Saturday um, with my family doing some cool stuff, or do I spend it for the treasury without a proper incentive? These decisions are getting harder over time, yeah. And so I think it was a really good way how we stretched the thing up. I mean, the only thing that we did basically was looking how others do it, and this is always the best way. We are never the first ones to do some things. Yeah, the DLT space is big. There's a lot of DAOs. There's a lot of treasuries. There's a lot of grant committees, and it if you observe the space, you figure out that there are a few methodologies that work, and um, you are usually going a good way if you start um, similar like others do it, and then along the way you can always adjust things and make them better and more fitting um, to the specific situation of a protocol.
Yeah. I and I find it's so many times, like, capitalism, economics, and humanity is the foundation of decentralization. I mean, if you want quality, um, passionate people working on projects, you know, reviewers, whatever, community managers, you know, treasury leads, you know, those individuals that have those qualities, those valuable qualities, are probably already either employed or have enough projects going on that has their focus. So, like, you know, like you said, there probably are some people for free, but you would lose some quality. There are some that are just very valuable quality people that are fully retired, but you know, not far and few between. but yeah, it's really worked out. And I hope to, that's like the committee supported this coordinate content creator kind of as almost like a test, like to offer a couple grand a month in SMR airdrops that, our community has been really working for free. The moderators, the X teams, the developers, and just supporting it because purely on passion. But we now have this treasury, and hopefully we have a larger treasury in the future. And eventually smart contracts will go to mainnet IOTA, and we'll have the IOTA treasury. So just like you said, other protocols have done their guilds where you have this labor force within the community that does then get incentivized value. They get paid for their work through different Web3 decentralized platforms and smart contracts. And again, once there's substantial incentives there for people to do their work and they're passionate about it, the quality is so much higher. And I think we haven't seen that in our ecosystem. Everyone's just had to do everything for free, like you said today in the governance meeting. We've been slaves. We'll be slaves to just doing it for free. But now we've got these treasury funds, which is great, that we can start incentivizing individuals to not just do free work, but they also get paid at the same time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So. It's definitely the thing. I mean, volunteer work is not something that has to be dismissed. Yeah, it works in a lot of aspects of our normal life. There are hundreds, thousands of people volunteering to do to work at Greenpeace and all these things, and that's great stuff. But it's like always, you can't plan a protocol just or any project just based on voluntary work, because voluntary, you always need to give them the freedom to hop in and out as they like, and likely they will just do as much as possible for them to feel okay and not kind of abused after time. So you have to get something out of it. This can be a feeling of feeling worthy, because if you get a good feedback, you need this feedback loop. So you either can incentivize people with making them feel extremely good and making them feel extremely well and valued for their work, which works a long time, which still works for our moderators and things like this, but a little bit, and even if it's just an appreciation, a monetary incentive is something that likely will help a lot for some people, that to just cross this chasm and say, doing it all for free, I don't know, but I get a little bit, and it doesn't need to be a super full-time salary, but giving people something back for what they do. This is a normal principle. If you always ask for doing everything for free, this will not sustain over, how long are we in now? 6-7 years in the protocol. And you see in the beginning, it's always great. Everybody has high dreams. And as long as you have the feeling that your work directly potentially contributes to a rising token price, cool. People will put that in, but then they also have, again, the expectations of a return one day. And they, and if this is not happening as quick as people think, then activity slows down and everything gets a little bit, and then you need something to feed this feedback loop. And that's great that we have the treasury now. It's actually was a super important decision that we created this ecosystem fund for the Shimmer network. That's like a game changer, I think. And really, if you look back, and I mean, it was nearly kind of a year ago, I think, or a little bit more than a year ago, that the first proposal came out to create this ecosystem fund, and we had all these long discussions and all these doubts and people. But from my point of view and where we are now, it was 100% best decision for the network we could do, because without this grant committee and without this additional tokens, many of the good things that we have now wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, and so quite
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
and,
quite
and
true.
I'll be honest, I was almost against it in the sense of inflating a designated amount and sticking to that kind of hardcore ideology of, once it's decided on this amount, that should be it. But not only the benefits of the projects we've been funding that I think are great, or even to test out the kind of this coordinate with the airdrops, but we're talking about it today with the committee, is that, like, at least I always looked at it as, yes, I mean, definitely we want to very sensitively treat these funds well and make sure they have impact, but also this is sort of a chance to test things out, not just test things out on the governance side of the treasury, but also test certain things out with funding projects that maybe the TIA wouldn't, because they're a little bit more careful, but that let's test things out before we get to the IOTA community treasury, the actual IOTA ones, which is going to be larger. And one of the decisions was like on the C++ library, and there's been the Flutter aspect, and I've talked with Mark from TIA, and they thought they were really good proposals, but they didn't have anything fully definitive of, will this be used? And they only wanted to fund something that they knew, which is totally understandable. Where I thought, okay, we could be a little bit more risky here. And sometimes you can do a survey and developers say, well, I'm not really into Flutter. But once it's out there, it may actually gain attraction, or it may not. And then those libraries may be maintained if they gain attraction. And if they don't, they probably will not be maintained. But at least then we know that from when we eventually get the IOTA treasury. And if we find that C++ library, people build on it, great. Now we can start funding C++ projects. So it's interesting to, if we didn't have that treasury, we'd be starting from ground zero and then have to learn a lot of things along the way. Hopefully we can learn a lot of this stuff now with the Shimmer treasury, that when we do get access to the IOTA treasury, the community can look at the previous experience from the Shimmer treasury and then decide how they fit, but at least have some data that they can, some experience to work on. So speaking of that, why don't you update, for those that don't join the Thursday governance, on where governance is going? Maybe, I think we had a lot of attention in the beginning when we looked at the 50 Ti vote and creating the Firefly vote and how we'd create a governance framework. And I think we tested that through the 3 different phases with the several votes in Firefly, which was all successful. We had a counter proposal that passed through the framework, I think did really well, that everyone's voice got heard, and that went to a vote, and then the consensus, the majority of the community decided at the end. And all this was done on the layer 1 sort of Firefly aspect, but now we'll have EVM. So how will that change things?
I mean, I think in general, we have had a lot of learnings, and now that it really depends on governance, I think important for us is to understand that actually governance for Shimmer, for the protocol and things, these are stuff that will evolve over the next years, I think. So it really depends. There's so much difference if you are governing an NFT project where 200 degens are completely going crazy on the NFTs, and they build their DAO and they vote and decide everything together, and there's like dozens of votes a month on small things and here and there. This is kind of the usual governance stuff that's happening in DeFi and the Web3 projects. But what we are with Shimmer and with IOTA, basically being layer 1 networks, the base layer of everything, things move slower and governance evolves slower and has to be also taken out much more careful. And this is, I think, what we designed already with our governance framework, to have really a well thought out process that is meant to grow together with the protocol and together with the community, because it needs also the ecosystem and the community members, everybody kind of needs to learn to get along with governance, because we didn't have anything before. Yeah. And so the next step now basically is kind of fulfilling the promise that we gave while we created this additional funds for the ecosystem and for the community, is basically to go into the next step of decentralization and put these funds into a real decentralized governance system, because the very difficult thing is really kind of, if you create a pot of tokens and you say they belong to the community, what exactly does this mean? Because the community is a vague, it's just basically, it's just a word. The community means, okay, in our case, all governance token holders, all people that would potentially they have a stake in the network by owning their Shimmer tokens. But how do you give those people ownership over such a thing? And the only thing how you can do this currently is with smart contracts, because then you can distribute ownership into a system where everyone that owns voting rights in the system, which are coming usually from tokens, has a decision-making power. Yeah? And so once EVM goes live, the plan is basically to deploy a set of smart contracts that are used in many other protocols in Web3, coming from Ethereum, used in Arbitrum, Optimism, many other DAO projects, many big DeFi projects, and put the community tokens into such a smart contract so that they're finally completely owned and completely decentralized, controlled. Yeah. And this is stuff what I'm majorly thinking about now, especially first of all, looking very deep into how those systems work, how the smart contracts behind those systems work. It's new stuff, because we all have not so much experience with smart contracts. And so for me, the very important thing was that we use proven and kind of as much as possible ready-made solutions that we can take and we can deploy, and we don't have to do a lot of things by ourselves, because honestly, nobody in our ecosystem is a real smart contract expert. Yeah. You have, of course, great people like they have been working on smart contracts a long time, like Eric Hopp and things like this. But compared to the knowledge and the experience that the Ethereum community has, because they have operating smart contracts so many years and with so many thousand different protocols and 100,000 deployments and 10,000s of developers have looked and worked on those code. It is not something that you can just replicate in 1-2 years with a small community that we are. Yeah? And so the plan is definitely to use a fully working and 100 times deployed system from the EVM, from the Ethereum community, similarly like other projects do it. Yeah, we have TangleC, we have TangleSwap. What are they doing? They're taking Uniswap, the oldest, the best, and the most used and most battle-tested application from the Ethereum ecosystem, and they are moving it and bringing it into our ecosystem. Yeah, they put some different branding and colors and things on it, but in the end, the background and all the smart contract and the whole security and functionality is a direct copy of what is deployed in hundreds and other chains in the Ethereum system. And this is what we're also going to do. Yeah, we're going to use Open Zeppelin Governor, which is the kind of, besides Compound Governor, the standard Governor contract, which in our opinion, will be basically the most secure thing that you can do, because we are not talking about securing $10,000 for a little.
Yeah.
It's like it potentially there are millions of dollars at stake, and so first of all, the good thing is it's already there. Somebody has built it. Many have audited it. Many have contributed to it. And it's not, we don't have the time. We don't have the funds. We don't have the people to build things ourselves. So we use what is out there and deploy it for us. And then we kind of look where we need to modify it to fit our specific needs. Yeah, but the modifications should always be minimal, yeah, because every modification has potential security risks, needs to be checked and audited, and so that's basically the plan. Yeah, so once this is deployed and tested and audited, we can then move the community tokens into the system, and then we will have kind of a new voting feature available for the community, and this voting will happen then in the Shimmer EVM, because the tokens will sit in the Shimmer EVM, not on the Tangle anymore, because Tangle, no smart contract, so no decentralized governance and no control over it. And so once they are in the EVM, we also need to vote in the EVM. And again, here, the good thing is we're going to use ready-made tools, ready-made deployments, no super special fancy IOTA IOTA special solution that in the end nobody can maintain and understand. Always trying to get aligned with industry standards, which will also help anybody that comes from outside our ecosystem into us to find tools and things and procedures that are basically commonly known in all Web3. And the more we align a little bit with the industry, the easier it usually will be for newcomers to get along with our ecosystem. So if I use the same thing, if we wouldn't use Uniswap forks or forks of big protocols like Compound and things like this for lending and things, imagine we would build everything ourselves and everything a little bit different. It would be a big friction for anybody that is not used to our ecosystem to come in and just start doing something. And so this is usually a good way. We want to grow. We want to invite others to join our ecosystem. We need more people coming in. We need everything. We need liquidity coming. We need users coming in. We need new creative and engaged people. And if they find some solutions that are principle known to them, it usually makes it easier for them to come in. But for the governance stuff, this is always the way to go. You have to make sure that you use the most secure thing, because funds are at risk, and trying to build your own thing will take ages, and still there will always be a doubt if everything is secure because it hasn't been battle tested over years already.
Yeah, I think the trust is such a big thing when it comes to governance voting and smart contract management and management of, like you said, potentially millions of dollars, maybe one day tens, hundreds of millions, of USD value. And it has been something we've talked about in the committee, but there's you could do 20 audits with all the best 20 audits in the world on a smart contract, and it could still get hacked. But there's one thing that is better than an audit is just time, right? Time tells if something is secure or not. If there's millions of dollars there, meaning that there's incentive to hack this thing, this smart contract, and such as Bitcoin's been there for how many years, 15 years or whatever or more. And smart contracts governance voting, where if someone can game that governance vote, they can then siphon 2 million, 20 million, 200 million out. That's the thing. Yes, we could have a great idea and create maybe some new edge smart contract governance, but do you want to not have the time back in there that's been tested? So that's awesome that you guys, that yourself and the community is looking at, hey, let's use some smart contract governance that's going to control millions of dollars, that not just has been proven that we can audit and that the smart contract devs in the IOTA Foundation approve, but also has 5 years within the crypto ecosystem that has sustained itself. There's others that have tried new stuff, and sometimes those get hacked, but like you say, best to use the ones that have been time proven themselves. That's like the best audit that you can have, that there's been value there and people have tried and people have failed and it's maintained itself with security, which is good.
And it's like, just, I think a couple of days ago, there was Uniswap had to make an emergency redeployment of one of their smart contracts on all chains, because they found, even in this most used, heavily tested, most heavily attacked protocol of DeFi out there, they found a vulnerability, and they had to redeploy all their contracts, like this one contract on all their deployments on all chains, because it was a severe security risk. Luckily, they had been there was some white hackers. I think they found that thing. So we have always to be aware that, as always, like with your Microsoft Windows and your Android phone, without continuous monitoring and updating and checking things, you can never say that everything is super secure. But we have to work with it. This is software development, as always, yeah. Without upgrades and new features, things will stay static. And so this is the way of life. And I think for governance it's the same. If we stay static and we don't take new findings and new things into account, it will never work. Yeah, like what we are doing now with looking into how we can update the things that we have created and decided a year ago. This is the way to go. Yeah, so it's a continuous process of putting things into real life, testing them, improving them. And it's a similar thing that we did with Shimmer. Like you said in the beginning, yeah, we have this great opportunity with Shimmer to just really try out a couple of things with, yes, of course, there are funds at stake now. People, there's supply and demand. People want the token. And so, yeah, there it is. And we have now this little testing machine for everything that we want to do with IOTA. It actually was a great thing to put Shimmer up on the table. Yeah, let's really imagine we would have to do all these things directly on the mainnet. Yeah, so cool. So we have the chance to test out governance, to figure this out, and it's super important, I think, because like this learning process that we have now will just help us to make governance with IOTA even better. Yeah, to secure the IOTA community treasury much more. Yeah, if I think about what our thought process has been 2 years ago, how and what and if and what we would do with those funds, if we would just have directly started with it, let's say, yeah, that we would have smart contracts and everything would have been available, and in, like, let's say June 2021, we would have access to the treasury. I think this would have been quite some chaotic time, and likely quite some mistakes would have been made along the way, because I think we just weren't ready for this thing. Yeah, this whole thought process of how to design a good working governance system, how to design rules, it took us really a long time, and it's not like we have been lazy or something like this, or we had so many people participating in the thing. And if you want to spin up a governance that is based on the opinion of the community, I think you need this time. Otherwise, okay, you can just basically copy paste anything from another community and assume, oh, it works here, so I'm pretty sure it will also work with IOTA.
Right.
It might work, like I said, if you have one NFT DAO and you likely can copy paste many things to the next NFT DAO project, yeah, because it's very, very similar, especially if it's running on the same ecosystem, same change. But we, IOTA community, have always been pretty special in our thought processes, in our requirements, and in our vision. And so I think it was really good that we had enough time to design something that really represents what the community wants. Yeah, because if you think about this whole governance framework process, where basically I think we did like 4 months just working on the initial draft to get all these rules and race conditions and potential attack vectors taken into account, and you have to think through all these different scenarios. What could go wrong? What could happen? What could somebody do? And you come into this human behavior thing. Yeah, it's like a lot of psychology involved. It's pure politics on one thing, and then you have the economic side of thing where you have to think about, okay, how would an malicious actor, what incentivizes them, how much could they extract on value? So there's so much thought process involved that I'm happy we had enough time to create something, not just a shot out of the hip, but something that is basically based on the thoughts of a lot of community members, of a lot of great and intelligent and knowledgeable people, because otherwise we would have potentially done some stupid decisions that would have bitten us already. Yeah, so that's actually the good thing. And with Shimmer, we have this additional testing phase where we see it now live. Yeah, we can basically observe ourselves. Yeah, so we are currently observing our own thought process from 1 and 2 years ago, and we basically see, okay, we have thought it would be like that, but now we see, actually, no. Even if we did so many hours of thinking and so many meetings and so many talking, we figured out, the reality is still a little bit different, and that's actually great. To see it now live and to see, okay, cool. We didn't expect this to happen, so let's adjust it and make it better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's not definitely something to say about first mover advantage, but there's also something to say of a carefully planned third mover advantage where they get to see the mistakes, especially when the consequences are super high, which, I remember, I feel like it was around 2018, maybe mid 2018, that like 2017 was just holy cow. The regular layman consumer all of a sudden learned about crypto, basically Bitcoin and altcoins and everything like that. There was a big explosion, but then 2018 was all of a sudden decentralized governance, all these protocols, Ethereum, and how do you govern the change? There was so much discussion into it and ideology that it should be 100% decentralized, but then there was hacks. And then I remember, was it Uniswap that somehow the vote got gamed and they like bought, or they wanted to buy a Declaration of Independence or something like that. I mean, like a $3 million document. It was just so crazy of an idea. It had nothing really to do with the ecosystem, but because different parties were, whales, whatever you want to call them, I can't remember, was able to get enough voting power for that time frame. They were able to push this very wild proposal through. And I think it's good to see, and that's happened probably a few times, if not, hacks that gone on. So it's good to kind of see those mistakes as well as the innovative side of the community members that, I personally haven't really paid attention to anywhere outside IOTA, but I'm amazed. Like a lot of the community members just know so much going on within the crypto space in all projects, and then actually see what happened, how one got hacked, or how a vote got gamed, and then they get to bring that into our discussion so that we can form that framework to protect against those things, which I think is great, which is something I think you are thinking about and the community is thinking about in our Thursday governance groups of, let's do a smart contract level 2 governance vote, but let's also put like a protection that, the moderators have to officially sign off on it. So if it is sort of a gamed or a hack in a sense, then that actually will get stopped. But it's all transparent. And the more and more with governance, I realize even like real life politics, with especially American politics, like the more transparency there is, then you can't create false narratives. You can't use media to sway the community's consensus because it's transparent. So if the community voted something and the moderators went somehow against that, it would be transparent. It would be so black and white that there was, again, corruption. At the same time, it's transparent too that, hey, this smart contract vote, we're going to put a hold on. We're going to maybe do a emergency vote because clearly it's being gamed. $3 million wants to go to some group in Monaco, and it's just, but I've amazed looking at some of the other governance, fully 100% decentralized, smart contracts that rather than let's do like a transition, let's have a safety measure there. They just go 100% for it, and then boom, they get hacked. They lose $100 million, and it's like that. I mean, in an instant, it's gone, and the consequence to that is so detrimental to that ecosystem. It's not only the loss of funds, but just the public relations that they've been hacked. So I'm glad that we get to see the experiences over time and not be the first one to just, hey, let's try this out and see what happens.
I think this you can put this in on all the things that we're doing. Basically, actually, we can be really happy that we are now in the third or fourth protocol iteration of attempting to decentralize IOTA.
Right.
And the whole space is still in this experimental phase. And you see it. There hasn't been proper real world adoption of crypto, right, because we are not mature enough to really develop applications that you can really, as a non-crypto nerd and with a lower risk appetite that we all have, with a normal risk appetite of normal people, it's still too much chaos and too much craziness in the space for being just implemented and used by industry partners and things like this. This is what we have heard, and I mean what the IOTA Foundation has heard since many years for all these POCs that have been done. It was always like, yeah, cool, nice, but let's wait a little bit. Let's mature those things, and so we are going through all these iterations of ideas, of testing, of figuring out it works or it doesn't work, and okay, so we change and we redeploy, and so we're still in this circle. And also I mean, even like Ethereum, where I would say it's like kind of it has surpassed everything, and Ethereum will be the one and only thing in the space, but no, because kind of they haven't been able to fix some of their initial flaws from the beginning in their design decision. Like the decision of the EVM or the ERC20 token contract is kind of from a perspective of today, without having this huge adoption that Ethereum had, nobody would willingly and lovely use ERC20 today. Yeah, if you would have to build Ethereum new again, you wouldn't build it in a way it is now. But they are stuck. They are kind of stuck in this design, which the good thing for us is we can take all those learnings and do it better. Yeah? And so this is also the reason why there's always new projects and chains coming up and ideas coming up, because you do the same thing like we do. You observe what happened over the last years, what happened in Protocol X, what happened in GAO X, what happened in the governance there. And you say, okay, yeah, shit, this is stuff that can happen. How can we avoid it in our protocol? And so the first movers, they have the problem that either they had to change their protocol several times. I mean, like we did with IOTA also, because we just figured out, no, the thought process there was not fully thought through. There has been flaws and we had to change it. But if you run a protocol like Ethereum with like $300 billion valuation currently, you can't just like say, oh, guys, we stopped the whole thing for a month.
Yeah.
Let's come back in a month, give our devs a little bit time to deploy everything new, and then we'll see how it works after this. Yeah, so they are stuck in this circle, and it will be very interesting to see over the years how, especially the big protocols like Ethereum, can come up with new ways of changing the things to the better. Yeah, and they have this governance process, which is luckily actually Ethereum hasn't a fully decentralized governance process. Yeah, imagine there would be for all protocol upgrades a real DAO vote among ETH holders. They wouldn't be able to move anything forward, and they are already moving very, very slow. And so you really have to look exactly what kind of protocol you are, what are you actually doing, and what kind of governance and how much decentralization you want for this whole thing. Otherwise, you will end up like Bitcoin, where there's actually nothing moving forward anymore, and because people are just stuck. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, I never knew how deep the rabbit hole goes with governance, and so much different ways on the spectrum you could look at it. To fully 100% decentralized, everyone has to vote, which then is, what people are voting, which usually it's a low vote turnout. And then of those people, how much are they passionately invested in the network, and then the technical ability of those individuals. And it's just, there's so much to it, and to be the first one to try to branch out on it. And it's true, it's Ethereum in so many ways is very centralized, and Bitcoin is, I don't know, would you think Bitcoin is more decentralized in a sense that the acceptance of protocol upgrades, it takes longer, slower than Ethereum?
Actually not. I mean, if you look in Bitcoin, the whole power to change code in Bitcoin is distributed over 9 people. I think there are 9 people that have the right to change the Bitcoin code in Bitcoin Core, which is the de facto implementation running since many, many years. And this is Bitcoin. Yeah. And so there are nine people that have the keys to GitHub to change the protocol. Yeah. And of course, you see what's going on now with ordinals and all the things like this the stuff Eric Wall and Udi did, bringing inscriptions now into Bitcoin, and the whole core community going crazy and saw it as a break of the social contract. And I mean, like, so this is like very, 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 very difficult way of doing governance. On the other hand, protocol like Ethereum is like so complex. It's just like completely natural that you don't want everybody to be able to make decisions on things that they don't understand. And it's the same thing with IOTA. We will very likely never have a vote about changing a specific mathematical formula that is implemented in the way we do our on-tangle voting consensus. Because even if you try and you would produce content, it's like so complex that only a handful of people, even in the IOTA Foundation, fully understand it. And how can you put something like this up into a DAO style decision where we say, hey, like we are all good friends, everybody has one vote, everybody has one voice, and so we only change things if everybody wants to change them, yeah. And then if you can't expect things like this to work because nobody has the ability to understand such a thing and such change, and so it doesn't make sense to put this up into a governance vote because like it's like would rather have no participation, or it would be easily influenced by just people that say, oh yeah, trust me, I understand it, it's great. Or somebody else says like, oh no, I'm the math guy, I have looked into this, there is a flaw, it's like, and what do you do as a normal person that doesn't have the mathematical capability to understand this?
Right.
You have to find somebody that you trust that is telling you that this thing is correct or incorrect, because you are not able to calculate it yourself. So you have to trust somebody, and sometimes you trust those that seem very sympathetic to you. You like them. Oh yeah, they're cool. They're nice persons. They have a cool PFP and whatever. I know them in the Discord, but we are completely anonymous. You never know the intentions of actors fully that are popping up in a community like this. And so I think it's very important that such core protocols like IOTA or Ethereum remain some functions controlled by those people that really understand what's going on there. So
now, in that sense, there's so the IOTA Foundation would. Do you think they're, and we're talking, I'm trying to talk 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road. Do you think that basically the long-term vision, I don't think I've actually personally, I haven't even really looked at the long-term, what is the real long-term vision of the IOTA Foundation, but that that the protocol is so ingrained in a global adoption that those companies would support the IOTA Foundation as a nonprofit in maintaining the base protocol code base, the community, the foundation as a whole. Is that essentially the long-term vision for the foundation in that sense?
Yeah, but involving the real stakeholders. Yeah, so like I said, if you think about, okay, what protocol upgrades we will have in 5 years and 10 years, there will of course be always protocol. There will like super fancy future stuff will happen in DLTs, and we can't even imagine at this point in time. Yeah, we can maybe look forward to the next 2 or 3 years, but if you look back what we thought 3 years ago, what would happen now is like you can't imagine. But I think what you need for a protocol like this is you need a, a, a group of stakeholders, which of course one of them is the IOTA Foundation with the core devs that and the research team. But I'm sure there will be other entities emerging in our ecosystem that will have a similar qualification and also a similar stake and intention of really having the only purpose of building the best DLT and bringing IOTA forward and making it successful. Yeah, and so such entities will evolve, and I think we will come and find a way that we have like something like a like a committee or like um, a group of um, a group of people and entities that have really the deep insight to make the best decisions for the upcoming, for the future. And this usually will be builders, big builders that have put their whole stake into the IOTA protocol. And so they are, first of all, then put really good incentivized to create the best protocol, because like without you having everything that you depend on put on the table, because that's your life, that's your business, this is where your family is coming from, this is where you have 500 employees depending on the protocol working as good as possible. The more entities of this kind we'll have, the better we will be able to make real decisions that make sense for the future of the protocol. Yeah. So currently that's the IOTA Foundation. It starts now that we have really teams building on IOTA. They will make businesses, they will become successful. They will have even higher stake at risk if something goes wrong with the protocol. So they have a natural incentive to really work on making the protocol better and more secure and better working. And those entities will be the one that in the future, together with the IOTA Foundation, make the major decisions of where the whole thing is moving forward. Yeah. So similar like in Ethereum already, because Ethereum has this already. You have this huge entities that have like billions of dollars, companies invested in Ethereum. They rely on the core protocol working in a certain way. Otherwise, they would have to shut down. They would have to lose employees. They would lose billions of dollars of money. And so they are incentivized to contribute to the protocol through research, through their own engineering, and through an open discussion. And if you look in the Ethereum research forum and in the Ethereum research community and developer community, there are like 10,000 people, 10,000 devs, and hundreds of scientists working on the Ethereum consensus and the Ethereum protocol. And many of them are really incentivized because they already have a business running on it. Similar, I'll see it coming for IOTA. Yeah, so you have entities that will become big, and it's in their own interest to contribute valuable to the core protocol so that their business will get better and they will stay profitable and successful.
I like it. And I agree. I mean, it's that financial, economic reputation. Again, I think it's a like economic principle where like let's say Uber. I mean, Uber used to on their app say if you want to purchase and pay with Uber dollars, I mean, this was back in, I think 2019, you could get a discount on, and you wouldn't have to use sort of like a credit card transaction fee. It wasn't necessarily blockchain, but then you'd say, well, what value does an Uber dollar have? Of course, they are saying one Uber dollar matches one USD dollar. But what truly gave one Uber dollar $1 was simply their reputation as a business, that when you go to pay with that Uber dollar, they would equate it to one US dollar. There probably wasn't any backing or anything like that, like supposedly Tether has, a 1-to-1. But the fact that they're a multi-billion-dollar business, if they were to try to scam someone and come away with, I don't know, or maybe scam a whole city and come away with a 10% profit on, maybe even, let's just say $3 million, they're going to lose their reputation and they're going to lose their $3 billion global revenue stream. And that's so substantial.
And they would even face criminal charges because there are docs. This is like it's a company. They have an address. They have a CEO. They have people that you can make accountable for their actions. And this is really important to cross this chasm from crazy crypto stuff into people that stuff that works in the real world, and because real world is still relying on traditional systems, and even if we are going on our path to influence that and change that and create more decentralization on it, still it's in the nature of humans that we have a certain trust assumption, and this depends on our knowledge of a certain thing. Yeah, we trust, you trust your car manufacturer because there is a history of like, okay, 30 years and only a couple of people have just died in the car because it exploded out of nothing. Yeah. So this is the thing that we need, entities that are trusted, and those entities then have enough at stake and they are being possible accountable for their actions, and you have kind of also a way of enforcing actions against them. Yeah? And it's different in DeFi, and it's a critical thing. But as long as, I mean, you have to trust the code in DeFi, yeah, and that's a cool thing. But you also have this continuous little risks that you see here and there. Some things are not perfectly working, and so it's a small path that you are walking, and I think it will take a couple of years until we really find the best working solution that brings crypto into the pockets and into the phones and whatever of much more people than currently.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, I like it. I have finished my glass of whiskey here. It's nighttime, folks. It's not daytime. I'm not doing treasury business here. So, but I'm gonna go for a refill. But I think this has been good. This is, I think, for the community, the governance, as Philo said, is moving to, of course, an EVM on Shimmer. It's going to be a layer 2 voting. It's going to be a smart contract voting. But the Thursday governance meetings are discussing how we can take time-tested, approved smart contract governance systems and bring them to Shimmer to manage the treasury funds in the future. And this is not some new smart contract. This is the time tested, proven. This is the same that the DeFi protocols are. I think everyone realizes that a hack or a mistake or something to be gamed is a high consequences, and this is certainly not being taken lightly. That we want in the community extremely secure, trusted systems and processes in place. And and anyone that has knowledge or experience in other ecosystems with that, definitely welcome to come to our Thursday governance meetings and help us as the community, build this. Philo definitely is taking the time to just dive deep into it, and I unfortunately don't have the time as much as I used to, but I'm glad that he's there to present that and his finding and his research every week. And as we will build this together, and we'll be doing EVM layer 2 voting, managing funds, just like other chain. We're decentralizing the governance step by step, but also keeping it protected, keeping some emergency places so that we ourselves in Shimmer can test it and get it over time approved. And then we'll be moving that to mainnet IOTA and then progressing that on as well. So this has been great, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Very good talk. I can do this all day. I can talk rabbit hole of talking about governance. It's pretty good. I like it. Thanks for setting up this podcast. It was really great, and I fully agree with you and your statements. Yeah, if anyone out there wants to join us, wants to listen in or contribute, everybody's always super welcome. We're a nice little group. We have been bigger, we have been smaller over time. It always fluctuates, and everybody can bring in what he or she thinks is valuable, or also not just listen in and learn from what we're doing. This is how we do this all together. We grow, we make it better from time to time. So really cool. Meet us in the governance meetings. Thanks for JD. Thanks also to everybody that has contributed so far into the governance. I cannot stress that enough, that there have been so many people involved in this thing, and they all had really valuable contributions. We had discussions, we had some really controversial, but we solved it kind of all, and we came to consensus on what we are doing. So this is the way forward. Like, we're going to keep it.
Great. Thanks, Phylo. So everyone out
Alrighty,
there,
everybody.
let's remember,
Bye-bye.
let's build together, let's govern together, let's succeed together. All right. Take care.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.